tonight regarding the new SRNO number 16 of 2020, Emergency Powers COVID-19 regulations, which take effect from this morning, is that we are beginning as a country to turn the tide a bit in the war against the pandemic. And while we battle with the invisible enemy, the novel coronavirus, we should, of course, as a people and country, never become complacent or triumphant. History indicates that it was the second surge in the 1918 Spanish flu that was most devastating in terms of life loss. Indeed, we are advised that in the context of that 20th century pandemic, 500 million people were infected, and it is estimated that between 20 to 50 million persons died. So that is a significant history which we will not want ever to repeat. And the story as to how countries lapse or their restrictions, thinking that they had turned the tide, and then to have a second wave is one, of course, which we are reminded of each time. We need to follow the health guidelines, even when it appears that all is well, all may not be. And so by faithfully following the guidelines from the health department, from the police, we could, of course, save lives. Around the world, as at yesterday, Friday, 3 p.m., we are advised that about 3.7 million persons have been tested positive. I think in the international news this morning, the figure had already increased to about now 3.8. And that 259,474 have died as at 3 p.m. Friday, May 8, 2020. I've been careful to give the dates and time because it is a rolling, as it were, target. The variable, it is a variable, and every hour, every half an hour, the stats change. So for precision, I've given the time of my statistics. I would say that we have been lucky. In other words, God has been good to us here in St. Kitts and Nevis, because as we speak, we have no recorded deaths associated with COVID-19, no admissions at this time on account of the coronavirus in our hospitals, and those who have been tested positive are recovering nicely. So we want to give God the glory, and we hope that all of us as a people and country will continue to work hard to preserve lives. In all our measures, we have relied faithfully on the advice from our health experts, in particular the medical chief of staff and the medical chief of staff and the chief medical officer. We have also, of course, listened to the Commissioner of Police, because again, in the fight against pandemic, the security forces loom large. They have to be here and there, everywhere, monitoring, maintaining law and order, ensuring that the regulations are being complied with. So I want to thank them all. The NEOC members, and of course, we have had good advice from the ordinary citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. Their wisdom in this matter has been powerful and insightful, and so we are learning as we go from a wide cross-section of the country. The country at large has expressed its debt of gratitude to Dr. Laws, the Chief Medical Officer, and Dr. Wilkerson, and indeed the entire community of public officers who have been working 24/7, as it were, to assist our country in this its moment of greatest need. Indeed, the pandemic has proven brutal in its consequences upon all countries, whether it is the most powerful country economically, such as the United States of America, or it is the United Kingdom, or it is Italy. In every region, this has created major destabilization in the country, and the Caribbean region really is no exception. We are now beginning not only to feel the health impacts, but we are also now in a situation where we are feeling the economic impact as we try to grapple with the significant displacement of our tourism plant in general. I reiterate the support and gratitude not only of my cabinet, but from all the people of the Federation, to the public service officers who have really come through for us, the doctors, the nurses, the security personnel, and they have always been part of the frontline response. But there are other persons who are in the line, whether they are in the middle or the back of the line. Their service and support are equally instrumental in this fight. So this morning I want to remember the workers in the supermarkets who have ensured that we have been able to get a meal, those at the banks and the money service providers who have been very helpful. We want to mention our farmers and fishers who have stepped up in the context of our food security needs. And as I travel through the country and to the alleyways and byways, I've seen abundant supply of carrots, sweet potatoes, white potatoes, onion, and seasoned peppers. And so I want the farmers to know that the country appreciates that they have been there providing food, and the government certainly appreciates their efforts. The government appreciates their effort, and in this regard, the Department of Agriculture had started a program of providing free seeds and seedlings to many of the farmers, harrowing their lands free of cost. This, of course, will continue. We have also set aside another 135 acres of land from those land that we redeemed from the land for debt swap for these to be put into food production. So I want to commend all of these people. I want to mention, and someone asked me to do this, the landlords in the country who have shown good conscience. Some of them have lowered their rent, and I want to commend that action. And I hope that they will do so as long as it reasonably is required. One landlord called me and said that he had reduced his by 50%. I think that that is quite generous. I will refrain from calling his name, but I want to thank him and thank all others. Some of our suppliers of goods have been real reasonable with their prices and have tried to contain them, and I want to commend them. Without the ports, the activity at Scottsboro, of course, we will not be able to receive cargo ships and essential supplies, so I want to thank all those workers, the CEO, Mr. Dan James, and of course, persons like Milo Box and all others who have been there. And in the bit of commendation, I can't leave out the prayer warriors, wherever they are, who have bent their knees before our God and invoking his divine protection upon we the people of St. Kitts and Nevis and the Caribbean. Indeed, if we are to beat the virus, we have to have all hands on deck, and everyone can do something positively to ensure we minimize the probability of transmission of the virus. Very quickly, with respect to the new regulations, today and tomorrow are 24-hour lockdown days, and we want everyone to observe them. If there is a specific reason for which, compelling reason, you have to be out, of course, you can always get permission from the Commissioner of Police or his agents. So I just want to remind persons of that. We have had some calls from persons who seem to have long waited to get back on the beaches and to do so in constructive ways. We know that our beaches are part of some of our most beautiful natural assets, but we want people, as they go back, to observe the new norm. Physical physical distance of at least 6 feet must still be maintained between individuals, unless of course you are part of the same household, and in the regulation a number is established of how many persons from the same household could be together. I want to emphasize and repeat, emphasize that there should be absolutely no beach parties and no beach picnics. We want people to understand that we have relaxed it largely for persons to add to their health and wellness through exercising, through swimming, and utilizing our beaches for physical activities. We say no beaches and no picnics. Not that these things are unimportant, but because activities like these increase the risk of transmission of the virus, which we have been working too hard and so very hard to contain. And I want to remind each of us, it only takes one person infected to transmit. I am delighted that Mrs. Hughes is here as head of our immigration services, because indeed one of the reasons given for our success has been the efficiency of our front line at the point of entry, border entry. And very early we began the process of vigilance at our port of entry. We were among the first batch of countries in the region to begin restricting entry of travelers from high-risk countries. We were among the first to begin the process of holding persons in quarantine, isolation, and then we were also among the first to close our borders. I recall when we said we were going to close our borders, some countries were so brave as to say they will not close their borders because the economic consequences of that would be too great. From the very beginning for us, saving lives was the priority, and we could not put a price on lives. For us, it has never been a zero-sum game. Either open the economy or the health. Both must go hand in hand, because we need a healthy people to drive our economy. And equally as the economy gain its vitality and viability, we have the resources to further expand and the provision of health services for our people. So both are not in conflict. The two must reasonably be advanced together. And that is why even as in Regulation now 16, we are doing more relaxation. For example, from Monday we are on a 5-day week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You have limited business operations, which mean more persons will be working. They will be going back to as near normal as it was, because standardly we would be working a 5-day, Monday to Friday, in many of the entities, in our banks, in our civil service, etc. And the exceptions to that would be in the minority. Because we had taken those precautionary measures, we are where we are at today, being among the few countries that have not recorded any deaths. And we have been able to use the time wisely to do an effective public education program of our people, and of course strengthening our health facilities. So today our health sector is stronger and better than it was. We have more professional hands than we actually have in demand at this particular moment in time. For example, our COVID ward, we brought in 34 professionals from abroad. That ward is closed, so those resources can be deployed elsewhere. Our A&E services, we are not having any significant surge in demand for services there. So we are now at a better place. And one of the challenges of the pandemic for all countries has been not to overwhelm the health system, When the health system is overwhelmed, more persons would, as a consequence, die. That is what is happening in the United Kingdom and in the America. I want to say that at this particular moment in time, the medical advice and all the professional advice we have is that our borders should remain closed for the foreseeable future. When we see the deaths that are taking place and the count keeps increasing in New York, in New Jersey, in Florida, and elsewhere in the United States of America, and in the United Kingdom, I could appreciate why people would quickly understand the need for our borders to be closed and that we should not rush to open them. Recall our first cases, and all our cases by and large have been imported, the result of persons who have traveled and who came back in, and as a result we had the particular cases which turned positive. Opening our borders prematurely would put at risk all our collective efforts to date and will bring much pain. And therefore, at this particular moment in time, that is not on the books. And so I want again to ask for the cooperation of all. While so far so good, we still have 50 plus persons in quarantine, and we do not know what the outcome of those would be. These largely form the student body that we brought in from Jamaica. So again, we cannot go too hurriedly to take actions that would create a state that is too difficult for us. My final point by way of introduction is to recognize that tomorrow, Sunday, will be Mother's Day. And I want to say Happy Mother's Day to Mrs. Hughes, since she is right here. And I want to pay tribute to all mothers and grandmothers in our federation. I recall my mother, when she was alive, she showered me with unconditional love and protection. And I will forever be indebted to her for all the considerations that she had given me. I have two daughters myself, and so I must extend Happy Mother's Day to each of their moms. Their mothers have been really excellent examples to my children, so I commend them. And someone asked me to recall and to commend especially the mothers in our country who are fathering their children. That is, they are playing the dual role in the situations where they are absentee fathers or fathers who had become careless in shouldering their responsibilities. So to all of you, for your love, your hard work, and your sacrifices, even in and especially in the turbulence of COVID-19, I want to say thank you. Thank you for continuing to protect and care and provide for everyone else, because that's really what mothers do. And for everything else that you have been doing in your various capacities, because they are not just mothers, they are mothers doing multiple chores, multiple tasks. I say thank you. One of the greatest gifts we have really, and sometimes we take it for granted, is the gift of health. Our mothers and grandmothers are no different. And this Mother's Day come at a unique time of COVID-19. I say one of the best gifts any child can give to the parent now, in particular the mother, since we are commemorating her day, would be to do everything you can to avoid the risk of your mother catching this very dangerous disease. The sad news to that end is that in the new norm, distance and space are expressions of love. In a manner of speaking, it is like saying, I love you so much, Mom, that I wouldn't come close because I don't want to transmit the virus if perchance I have it and I don't know. Luckily, technology, while imperfect, can compress the distance. So this year, perhaps, a telephone call to the mother or grandmother will do, a video call with her. And some people are better than I am at the technology, so Skype and Zoom can also come too. Whatever we do, we should avoid unnecessary physical contact or proximity. We could not disguise that there is a major threat and pandemic. The elderly are more vulnerable, and part of the answer to it, in the absence of a vaccine, is that we must observe physical and social distancing. Our mothers and grandmothers, of course, are precious to us, and we must do all we can to protect them, just as they did when we were children. Indeed, it doesn't mean that because we cannot visit them, we love them any less. I hold the view that love and our love for them must be securely and safely anchored in our hearts. So in closing, while the COVID-19 has posed a significant challenge to the future, as a government we are still committed to a better, safer and stronger future for all the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Let us not give up on that future. Working together as one people, one destiny, we will achieve it. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris. Let's go now to Ms. Hughes. Ms. Hughes, good morning to you.
Good morning, Mr. Bacchus. Good morning, Prime Minister, and all those who are listening or viewing at home and abroad. My role today is to speak on the roles and functions of the National Emergency Operations Center COVID-19 Compliance Task Force, which began operation here on the 20th of April 2020. This task force is mandated to ensure that businesses within the public and private sectors adhere to the guidelines outside in the Emergency Powers Regulation, statutory rules and orders, beginning with number 14 of 2020, and any other regulations going forward. The new SRO number 16 of 2020 commences today, Saturday 9th May, until Saturday, May 23rd, 2020. Our purpose is to ensure that businesses and public transportation, including buses, taxis, and ferries, comply with the health and security measures outlined by the Government of St. Kitts and Nevis on the advice of the National Health Operations Center and the National Emergency Operations Center to ensure the Federation remains a safe and healthy place to live, to work, and to do business. The objective is to ensure strict adherence to the regulations outlined in the various SR&Os on the relaxation of businesses to operate during the days of limited operations. Starting next week, those days will increase to 5, Monday to Friday. The task force is made up of officers from the Royal St. Christopher Nevis Police Force, the St. Kitts Nevis Defence Force, the Customs and Excise Department, Fire and Rescue Services, Environmental Health Department, Consumer Affairs, and the Labor Department. At this time, as I did yesterday, I wish to thank the men and the women who work tirelessly. Some suffer hostility by a few, especially some of those bus drivers who do not want to adhere to the regulations, but they are mostly encouraged by the majority of civic-minded individuals. The task force has a number of areas of focus, and I will read them as I will outline them, and then I will read them so that the society will recognize that it is not what we say, it is what the regulation says that must be enforced. And we speak to Regulation 7, and that speaks to social and physical distancing. Regulation 14, which addresses the suspension of all retail liquor licenses. Regulation 15, wearing of masks in public places once you're outdoors. Regulation 16, subsections 1, 3, and 8. Regulation 17, which speaks to the hygiene protocols. Regulation 18, that speaks to the power of the COVID-19 task force. And Regulation 19, which speaks to the penalties, which can range from $5,000 or 6 months imprisonment, or both. And so I would read the regulations so that persons would understand that this is not what the task force says, but this is what the regulation says. And Section 7 that speaks to social distancing and physical distancing protocols. Any establishment that is permitted to operate pursuant to the provisions of these regulations shall make the necessary arrangements to facilitate social distancing and physical distancing, and shall A, ensure that all customers and staff maintain physical distancing of at least 6 feet in or outside of their business if in a line to enter the business. B, determine the total number of persons that may be permitted in the establishment at any one time by permitting 1 person for every 30 square feet of store space. C, place distance markers at least 6 feet apart, indicating where each customer must stand on a line at a checkout point or other line. And D, place distance markers at least 6 feet apart on the outside of the establishment, indicating where customers must stand while waiting to enter the establishment. We go to Section 12. Section 14, let's go to Section 14 that speaks to the suspension of all retail liquor licenses. And it says, notwithstanding the provisions of the Liquor License Act, Chapter 1821, all retail liquor licenses are suspended once a period of emergency is declared in relation to COVID-19. Section 15 speaks to the wearing of masks outdoors, and it says, notwithstanding the provisions of the Small Charges Act, Chapter 4, Chapter 4, Section 36, a person shall wear a face mask covering their nose and mouth when in a public place once a period of emergency is declared in relation to COVID-19. We spoke to Section 16, exemption for days of limited operation. And it has, I'm going to read 3 sections. Section 1, subsection 1 says, the provision of these regulations shall apply during a day of limited operation and shall be subject to the provision of Regulation 7 for social distancing and physical distancing. Subsection 3 says, subject to subsection 1, to subregulation 1, where it is not possible for a business to function in accordance with the provisions of Regulation 7 relating to social distancing and physical distancing, that business shall cease to operate for the duration of these regulations. We go over to Section 8, and now I'll jump down to Section 17. Section 17 says hygiene protocols. The hygiene protocols that must be followed by businesses and enterprises are set out on the Schedule 2. And so I'll go to Schedule 2 and read that for you. Schedule 2 speaks to hand washing and sanitization protocol for good hygiene. And it says, the following are the recommended guidelines for hand washing and hand sanitizing to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 coronavirus. 1. Wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, especially after you have been in a public place or after blowing your nose, coughing, or sneezing. Be sure to scrub the back of your hands in between the fingers and under the nails. Wash your hands before putting on and after removing your mask. If soap and water are not readily available, use a hand sanitizer that contains at least 60% alcohol. Cover all surfaces of your hands, including the back of the hands and in between the fingers, and rub together until they feel dry. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth and unwashed hands. And 4, avoid a motor omnibus, hiring car or taxi or any passenger ferry must sanitize all door knobs and handrests after each trip. Okay, so that is what number 17 speaks to when it speaks to hygiene protocol. Number 18, the powers of the COVID-19 task force. The COVID-19 task force may A. Inspect or visit any business or enterprise to ensure compliance with the provisions of these regulations. B. Be consulted to assist businesses and enterprises to comply with the provisions of these regulations. And we go to section 19 that speaks to the penalty. A person who contravenes or fails to comply with these regulations shall be liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $5,000 or a term of imprisonment not exceeding 6 months, or to both, and to forfeiture of any goods or money in respect of which the offense has been committed. And so I read that specifically so that persons would understand that the compliance task force is not just going out on their own and making these checks. These are regulations that must be adhered to, and this is where we get our powers to go and perform our duties. I would like, as I close my presentation, to indicate that to date the task force has visited and assessed 852 businesses, and they include hairdressing salons, barber shops, bakeries, clothing stores, doctors' offices, supermarkets, mini-marts, government departments, pharmacies, furniture trader, hardware stores, food vendors, taxi operators, bus operators, the rum shops, broker agents, restaurants, village shops, lawyers' offices, car dealerships, banks, insurance offices, and other. And as stated, other is mechanic shops, construction sites. Some persons have their salons in their homes, the vendors, some vendors on the street, and some of the welding personnel. I would like to say thank you to some of the persons who have assisted with the compilation of this task force and have given us ideas and assistance. Mr. Kennedy De Silva, the Controller of Customs, Sergeant Sophia Henry, who is the liaison officer to the team, Mr. Osbert Franz of the Customs and Excise, Mr. Abdias Samuel, our chairman of the NIOC, Mrs. Langley Stevens, the deputy chair of NIOC, Dr. Hazel Laws, our CMO, Ms. Ophelia Blanchett, Ms. Kebas, Mrs. Petty, the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, who encourages their membership to adhere to the guidelines and protocol, and that has helped us quite a lot, because hearing it from them, their members are really, we have very little infringement from their membership, and I have to say thank you to them. The Taiwanese Embassy for translating the regulations to Mandarin, which enabled our task force to issue a copy to every Chinese business on the island. And so we must say a special thank you to them, because immediately I asked, they responded, and we got it in a very quick time. Special thanks to everyone else who would have helped in the creation of this task force. I would like to end by saying, flattening the curve in the Federation was no easy task, and we should not rest on our laurels. The virus does not discriminate. It does not see party, political colors, or religious preferences. It is evil, it is vile, and we must do everything within our powers to defeat it. We are a praying community, and we recognize that prayer works. Let us be mindful of our surroundings in the workplace, at the supermarkets, or other establishments where we have to interact with people. We come from different homes, different environments. We shouldn't need to have law enforcement or the compliance team telling us to wear our mask in public. We shouldn't need them to tell us that we must maintain social and physical distances. We must take responsibilities for our own action because we want to be able to come out of this, and we need our country to return. We talk about the new normal. It will take us a long time to get used to it. So we recognize wearing the mask is difficult because, as you see, I have to be pulling mine all the time because my glasses tend to get clouded. So I'm just saying, a lot of these things are new to us, but we can do it if we just keep practicing and practicing. Like the Prime Minister, I too would like to wish all the mothers a very happy Mother's Day tomorrow. And I don't have my mother around anymore. And so we know what the love of a mother is. And so we give thanks for those of us who have lost our mothers, and for those of you who have your mothers, to make the best of the resources that are available to reach out to them tomorrow, to the grandmothers as well. And as we've heard from Dr. Harris and Dr. Laws, and Dr. Wilkinson said it yesterday, the best gift that some of us may be able to give to them is that gift of health, by not going and contaminating them with, as the virus, it doesn't have a face. It does not always manifest itself through coughing or sneezing or any of those. So we don't know, and that is why we just have to maintain our distances. It will get better, and we just have to give it time. I want to say thank you, and we'll be back for questions.
And thank you very much, Ms. Hughes. What we'll do now, we'll hear from our partners. When we come back, we'll open the phone lines and give the listeners a chance to interact with the Prime Minister and the Chief Immigration Officer, head of the Compliance Task Force. If you have a question, that's a good time to call. Our numbers are 466-0989, 662-0989, and of course 762-0989. Our overseas numbers are 718-285-6984, 305-921-4619, 0333-344-0065, and those numbers are on our website, www.winnfm.com. So we're going to hear from our partners now. We come back. We hope to hear from you. That's why the Prime Minister is here. That's why the Chief Immigration Officer is here, to hear your questions and, of course, to listen to your comments. Just ask that you perhaps make them short and sweet so we can get as many in as we can.
We know
it's
you're
the
tired of
mobile
long
app,
lines at the
the
grocery
newest
store.
way to get the latest on what's
it's so much
happening locally, regionally, and internationally. Say goodbye to newspaper clutter and hello to updated classifieds on our radio market. Whether you're streaming your favorite local TV or radio shows or catching up on memorable moments in sports and entertainment, the ZIZ mobile app offers this and so much more. Always on the go? Get the ZIZ mobile app today. Visit the App Store on your smartphone or tablet and search for ZIZ News to download the app free of cost. ZIZ Online, reaching you wherever you are.
Tourism matters because it is the engine of sustainable development. It is an industry poised to revolutionize our nation.
I'm Jack Spencer, a third-generation fisherman. Our livelihood depends on tourism, not just mine, but I think the whole island. It touches everyone.
Tourism really contributes to the quality of life of our country.
This is Nurse Garnett calling.
Hi, Nurse. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm glad I'm first because I just want to say, the Honorable Prime Minister, good morning.
Good morning, Nurse. Lovely to hear you.
Yes, I said, let me be the first to call in. To God be the glory. Great things He has done. I was so pleased yesterday when I heard that there were 13 recoveries. And I give God all the praise and all the glory. I thank God for the wisdom that he has given, not only to you and the cabinet, but to also all those who are involved. For the past half of my life has been spent in health service, and I know what it means to have health. I have seen illnesses of all kinds. I have seen sufferings of all kinds, and no one wants to suffer. And what I want to say this morning to my good people is that obedience, it's better to obey than to sacrifice. And so, Lord, I ask that they would just be obedient to all the regulations and all that you all have done, because you have done so much to make sure that our people were kept safe. And so I want once again to ask them to count their blessings and to name them one by one. Because as I listen to Ambassador Powell, and he says he listens to all of the stations in the UK, in the USA, in Canada, and when we see and hear what is going on, and we know what is going on in St. Kitts, we have to say, to God be the glory. Look up and praise God and give him thanks for those that are set in authority. To you and the cabinet, and to you, Miss Hughes, and for all the security officers, and to NEMA, and to all who have come in and give a helping hand. We say thank you. And again, keep praying. Don't slacken up, because this thing, we have seen where places have begun to slacken up in Texas. They are regretting what they have done to slacken up. So please do not slacken up. Be on your guard. And in everything, continue to give God thanks and give him all the glory. And in closing, I want to wish all the mothers and grandmothers a happy Mother's Day. And be safe and keep praising God and giving him thanks in all things. May you all have a blessed day.
And thank you very much for calling, Nurse Garnett. We do appreciate your comments today. All right, our phone lines are open again. We seem to have missed the caller. Do call back, 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. Our overseas numbers, of course, 718-285-6984. Back to the phone lines we go. Call you live and on the air with the Prime Minister and the Chief Immigration Officer. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Backus.
Good morning, Mr. Brown.
And good morning to the panelists here. Carl Brown here. Good morning to the listeners home and abroad. Mr. Prime Minister, I must say to all who are involved, including the whole entire federation, and even our folks in the diaspora, they are helping in their own way, in so many ways that we may not see it up front. But Mr. Prime Minister, you may be able to explain that to the nation, that we have the people in the diaspora who are doing the bit to assist us back here. And we all together are doing a good job. But Mr. Prime Minister, the question to you is, we know that we have people in the private sector who are working what we would say steady or full time. People in the government service working full time. Now, Mr. Prime Minister, the public out here is concerned that you would have a number of persons that have sideline jobs, in the tourism industry, hotel industry, and all of that. All of those areas which are down at the moment from the COVID-19. Would they have the right to put in for the stimulus package, seeing that they are in a full-time job. And because they are not doing that sideline work anymore, we are understanding, and people in the public is concerned that they are putting in application to collect that sideline money. Do they have the right to claim for the stimulus package on the side? Because I said no to a number of persons, and the vets, I tell them they're not supposed to claim for it because they are in a full-time job. The other thing, Mr. Prime Minister, people having a number of concerns that online, a number of these things that saying apply online, and they are saying when they apply online, they are being locked, put it this way, locked out. So that is why you have the long lines at Social Security, at the Labor Department and things, because people are saying that they are not getting in. Those are my questions, sir, and if you could answer those for me. Mr. Backus,
yes, sir.
Before I go, people in St. Peter's are complaining that they're not getting Win FM for over a year and something now.
Okay,
so please to work on that for the people in St. Peter's.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown. I wish you told me before, man. It take a whole year to tell me, man. Oh, man. Anyway, let's go back to the phone lines. Caller, you're live and on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Backus.
Good morning, Mr. Backus.
Yes, I would like to ask the Prime Minister to explain why, since we had all of these surpluses that he frequently talks about, why did he turn to the resources of Social Security as a first resort? After all, Social Security was not intended as an unemployment fund. And we don't know what will happen with the virus and its fallout, but there's no excuse for not planning for multiple scenarios. And shouldn't part of the preparation for those scenarios, for instance, a second wave if it comes, is to share how the government plans to manage those scenarios? I mean, you could, for instance, tell us if there's no community spread, no known cases, all the cases are in isolation or recovery, that you can use that as a yardstick that will tell us that, well, the economy, the local economy at least, will be reopened. And can we say that a decision to reopen our borders will be based on the experience of our neighbors who are opening theirs in advance, okay? So at this time around, we should know when to immediately act if we find that they start contracting cases, and not wait and procrastinate like we did in the close down of our borders the first time, when we essentially just waited for the airlines and the cruise lines to quit on us. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. McMahon. And of course, our telephone numbers are 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. Our overseas numbers are 718-285-6984. We go back to the phone lines. We're trying to get as many questions in as we can. Of course, we're going to break for the headline news, but you will get responses. The Prime Minister is taking a note. Ms. Hughes is taking a note as well, and I'm keeping a little notepad here too. You're live and on the air. Good morning. Thanks for calling.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, my question to the Prime Minister. I want to know if it's for the poor people or because he's killing the small business then. Now, if you don't want alcohol to be selling from the small businesses, why not just shut down the breweries them, tell them they can't sell Guinness and beer and whatnot? And he has to understand that the small businessman them, they survive off of selling the little thing them, the drinks them. Because they got a small little thing and people hardly could buy food stuff. Next question, when he had the lockdown, he let go out for 2 days up by cash and carry go shop. The Chinese killing out all the small man them. They're buying up everything. Everything they're buying up. We ain't getting a chance to buy nothing. So when he say for the small man them, I would like to know which one. And the last question is, we don't pay social. And up to now we can't get with social money. We don't sign up, we went online, we end up calling them, and they say we in a long way. We pay social and we can't get. So how are you supposed to survive when men and money? That is my question for you, please.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for your call today. I'm sure you're going to get an answer from the Prime Minister. I think we're going to stop there for a while and just get some responses. Let's take one more call. I just want to keep this caller here. Caller, you live and on the air. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Bacchus.
Yes, good morning, sir. Mr. Politics?
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Hello, the Prime Minister and Ms. Hughes.
Morning.
Now, Prime Minister, my little question to you. Now, you got a few days from this dissolving Parliament. I know that you are went in those under the emergency bill. Mr. Prime Minister, there's a lot of people out there song and dance saying after the 14, you're going to be the Prime Minister of this country. And whatever going to happen, this going to happen, and all kind of things will take place. I just wanted to let the people know what will take place under the emergency act of this COVID-19 pandemic. Because, you know, some people, they don't listen. And they will have a really long idea. So, Mr. Prime Minister, I just want to commend you and your cabinet. You are doing a wonderful job. Mr. Hughes, I want to commend you too. You're doing a wonderful job in the immigration office. And I just want to commend Mr. Wilkinson and Mr. Gillas to commend the job they are doing to call back this COVID-19 from the Federation of Physical News. Very flatten it. That's the most important thing. Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Bacchus, you all have a wonderful day. God bless.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for your contribution. I did say that will be the call, but we're heading up to the headline news now. So I think perhaps to be fair to the Prime Minister, we'll take a few more calls and break and give him a chance to really speak fully without me having to interrupt him. So let's go back to the phone lines again. Call you on the air. Good morning.
Mr. Bacchus, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
Well, we're giving thanks.
Okay, great. Let me give the Prime Minister a little bit of advice. My name is Austin Coker. Mr. Prime Minister, do not allow nobody to pressure you, but no rum. Straightforward. Don't allow nobody to pressure you, but no rum and no retail rum selling. Because when you're drunk, you do more stupidness than when you're sober. And if we have the curve already almost flattened, it ain't make no sense for it to rise again. So the caller who want his rum, let him buy his rum, buy best buy rams and stay in his yard and drink and get drunk. Do not give nobody, Mr. Prime Minister, no small retail seller, no permission to sell no rum. Who want vex? You are responsible for the country, and at any cost, you will have to hold responsible if anything else goes wrong. No rum whatsoever. Bear in mind, myself was a part of the medical team at JNF. I'm a trained EMT. No rum, Mr. Prime Minister. Have a nice day.
All right, sir. Thanks for calling. Another caller will come live now. Caller, you live on the air. Hello? Yes, you're live. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Hi, we're listening to you.
Mr. Bacchus.
Yes, we're listening to you, sir. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Welcome. I'm glad to see the Prime Minister. When I go by the office, I can't get to see it and different things like this here. I want everybody to know in this federation, which is very good. I want every single person to know to congratulate that Prime Minister that we have. That Prime Minister that we have. If we are the opposite side, we all know to all ours better than better. But sure, we have intelligent and a good accountant, back up accountant, and so forth. And I don't know how to do business and so forth. The country is really so close. The agent is going up left, right, and center, and different things like this here. At this present moment, I never see a Prime Minister so care about people's health more than me. I want to congratulate Ms. Hughes. I want to congratulate Ms. Lars. I want to congratulate Dr. Wilkinson. I want to congratulate the man from Nemo and things like this here. I want to congratulate all the ministers of cabinet. One reason why, when you have a good man, don't let him down. push him forward. Because the more you push him, the better it is. I ask him God to call the angel that he sent to this federation. Let the Lord be with you all. Good program, please.
Thank you very much for calling. And we want to thank our callers. We're going to bring you the headline news now. The Prime Minister will be back with a statement, I'm sure, when we restart after the break. And we'll get the answers to your questions and your comments. I know the Prime Minister also looks forward to Mr. McMahon's call, which helps his blood pressure. And then we're going to get some action when we get back in the second half of the program. So we'll see you then.
Tourism matters because it is the engine of sustainable development. It is an industry poised to revolutionize our nation.
I'm Jack Spencer, third generation fisherman. Our livelihood depends on tourism, not just mine, but I think the whole island. It touches everyone.
Tourism really contributes to the quality of life of our community. Tourists bring dollars, and when there is more money in our community, that means all of us experience a better quality of life.
Tourism for me started 25 years ago. I started off as a waiter in the industry. So many different things have inspired me to become a part of this beautiful industry.
We need to teach our country clean.
When the tourism season starts, a lot of us get jobs. It's benefiting us in a big way.
One of the most important characteristics you must have to work in the hospitality industry is customer service. It is the most important skill you can have, not only in the hospitality sector, but also in life.
This is our product, this is tourism. Every individual on this island benefits from tourism. So we all have to play our role. Keep our island clean, look after our visitors. Just keep on jamming. We love you.
I am tourism.
I am tourism.
I am tourism.
And I'm tourism.
I am tourism.
I am tourism. I am tourism.
I am tourism.
I am tourism.
Follow your heart to St. Kitts.
Hello to all my fellow citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. My name is Alvin Mitchum and I'm originally from Keyon. The past few months have been the strangest and most difficult few months that many of us have ever faced in our lifetime. But I just want to offer a word of encouragement to everyone to continue to do their part to keep themselves, their family, and the wider community safe during this COVID-19 pandemic. I also want to give a big shout out to all the frontline workers in the Federation, to the doctors, nurses, and other emergency medical personnel, the police officers, the fire officers, and other security workers, to teachers, childcare workers, and even the social workers and counselors, to those in the supermarkets, whether you're stocking shelves or even delivering food to those around the community. Thank you for all that you've done so far. And an especially big shout out to the garbage collectors and cleaners, of which my mom is part of the community. Thank you for keeping our surroundings safe to ensure that this COVID-19 is not spread as quickly as it could be. Finally, to the government of our federation, I say thank you for doing a good job so far in keeping the citizens informed, and I hope that you'll continue to do your best to rid the federation of this disease. Thank you to everyone. You are our heroes.
Greetings, St. Kitts. I'm Valencia Henry. I'm here at the Grand Hyatt Hotel in Taipei, Taiwan. In the midst of this global pandemic, myself and some of the St. Kitts and Nevis nationals here in Taiwan want to wish you all the best.
Tell me when will you be mine? Tell me cuando we can share our love divine. Please don't make me wait again. When will you say yes to me? joy beyond compare. I can't wait a moment more. Tell me quando, 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 quando. Say it's 15 ago, yeah. And then darling, tell me where.
Greetings from Taiwan.
I'm Carrie Martin.
I'm Bridget Morton. I'm Anisha Gonzalez.
I'm Thomas Martin.
I'm Gabrielle France. I'm Erica Fritz. I'm Jamila Fraser.
We at the National Dongwa University, we are here keeping safe, and we're reminding everybody in this time of crisis to keep safe and stay at home and stay positive. Thank you.
Bye.
Sunday morning rain is falling. Still some cover, share some skin. Cows are showing us and moments unforgettable. You still feel the mood that I am in. But things just get so crazy, living like it's hard to do. I will never hit the road, get up and go if I knew that someday you will bring me back to you. That someday it will lead me back to you. Oh, then maybe enough that she is all I see. So come and rest your bones with me. Driving slow on Sunday morning, and I never wanna leave. Fingers trace your area line. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Paint a picture with my head. Back and forth we sweat like branches in a storm. Take the weather still together with us. Oh, then maybe all I need. Enough that she is all I see. So come and rest your bones with me. Driving slow on Sunday morning, and I never wanna leave.
Hi, St. Kitts and Nevis. My name is Karen Crawford. I just want you to know that I'm doing fine in Taiwan. I'm following all the necessary precautions. Please, St. Kitts and Nevis people, please follow the precautions and stay at home. Bye.
Living like it's hard to do. Sunday morning rain is falling and I'm falling out too. Singing someday it'll bring me back to you. Find a way to bring myself back home to you. Oh, then maybe I need enough that she is all I see. So come and rest your bones with me. Driving slow on Sunday morning, and I never wanna leave. So on Sunday morning, and I never wanna leave. Driving slow on Sunday morning, and I never wanna leave.
Hey family and friends, greetings from me to you from Taiwan, coming from Taiwan. During this time, I sincerely hope that everyone is staying safe, you know. One of the major key during this moment is to be selfless, you know what I mean? Protect thy brothers and sisters. Take care of thy brothers and sisters, you know. Guidance, peace and love to all. And extra love goes out to my mom, my mama, Joycelyn Mitchum, aka Dati, my pops, Alonzo Chapman, aka Fatty, and my older sister, Lavan, and my younger brother, Kai. Stay safe, everyone. SKN strong, SKN large forever. Bless up.
And the beauty of it all is where the sun comes shining through to make those rainbows in my mind. When I think of you sometime, I wanna spend some time with you. Baby, just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. Baby, just the two of us. Building castles in the sky, just the two of us, you and us. We look for love, no time for tears. Wasted water's all that is, and it don't make no flowers grow. Your things might come to those who wait, not to those who wait too late. We gotta go for all we know. Baby, just the two of us. Baby, let's get to us. Building castles in the sky. Just the two of us, you and
SKN viewers, I am Shamika Prentice, an SKN national studying here in Taiwan. I'm currently in my final semester of my senior year and should graduate in June. There hasn't been any word yet as to whether graduation is cancelled or not, but hopefully I can walk across the stage and receive my degree. In terms of the response to the COVID-19 outbreak, the government here has been doing a tremendous job at dealing with it. I know the border is still closed, however, nationals are allowed to enter and they are also quarantined. In terms of business and schooling, we never had any type of break, so everything was as usual. I know that's something that you guys at home can't really say, but let's keep God in our prayers and let's pray that we can get over this whole pandemic. And remember to wash your hands, wear your face mask, and keep your distance. I'd like to shout out my family, the Prentice and Sutton family at home. Please do stay safe. I miss you and I love you guys.
when your legs don't work like they used to before, and I can't sweep you up every fear. Will your mouth still remember the taste of my love? And will your eyes still smile from your cheeks? Well, darling, I will be loving you till we're 17. And baby, my heart is the fullest heart at 23. Said I think about how people fall in love in mysterious ways. Maybe just the touch of a hand. Me, I fall in love with you every single day. And I just wanna tell you I am so honey. Take me to your loving arms. is under your soul, never grows old, it's evergreen, so evergreen. And baby, your smile forever in my mind, in memory. Said I'm thinking about how people fall in love in mysterious ways. Maybe it's all part of a plan. Well, I'll just keep on making the same mistakes, hoping that you'll understand. No, baby, now take you to Glamia, kiss me into the light of 1,000 stars. Place my head on your beating heart. I'm thinking of now. Maybe we found love right where we are, David.
What's up, St. Kitts and Nevis? My thoughts and prayers are with every single one of you during this time. Please stay home. Please stay safe for yourself and for everyone else. Those of you who are working on the front line, risking your lives every day so that others may be safe, thank you, thank you, thank you. To my parents, family, and friends, I miss you guys so much. Lots of love.
Suddenly you feel every time you are near, just like me, belong to me, close to you. Why do stars falling from the sky every time you walk by? Decided to create a dream come true. So they sprinkle moons in your hair, golden starlight in your eyes of blue. All the girls in town follow you all around, just like me. Belong to be close to you.
Hi, I'm Vasha. I'm in Taiwan doing my nursing. I'd like to say hi to my children, Kasiva and Kalia. Hi, miss you guys. Say hi also to my girlfriend, the Free Radicals. They know who they are. Hi, and I'll be home soon. Bye.
The day that you were born, the angels got together, decided to create a dream come true. So they sprinkled moonlight in your hair, golden starlight in your eyes of blue. It's bright. All the girls in town follow you all around, just like me. Belong to me, close to you. Close to you.
On the behalf
behalf of the St. Kitts Nationals Association in Taiwan, to my family and my friends back at home, yes, I am fine, we all are fine. We are taking our necessary precautions and wearing our masks, and yes, we are practicing social distancing.
My fellow citizens and residents, as we continue the fight against COVID-19 here in St. Kitts and Nevis, I must update you as to the state of affairs when the present SRNO number 15 of 2020 Emergency Powers Regulations, which expire on Saturday, May 9th, 2020 at 5:59 a.m. Further regulations for the next 2 weeks, from Saturday the 9th May to Saturday the 23rd May, will be published under SRNO number 16 of 2020. These regulations will continue the process of gradually opening our federation to more economic and social activity. We must do so cautiously and carefully. Danger still lurks, and the war against this global pandemic is far from over or won. On Saturday the 9th and Sunday the 10th May, there will be a 24-hour curfew, as we have done during recent weekends. A total lockdown will still be in place. From Monday the 11th May and every day next week to Friday the 15th May, businesses will enjoy an additional day of limited operations as long as they practice social distancing and physical distancing protocols. They must also provide for a sanitized environment and insist that their staff and customers wear face masks as we turn to a semblance of near normalcy. No one, I repeat, no one, should be out in public without wearing a mask or an article covering his or her nose and mouth. The regulations will also provide for a similar pattern to be followed during the week, beginning Monday, the 18th May to Friday, 22nd May. That is, there will be 5 days of limited business operations from Monday to Friday. Some restrictions under these regulations will be relaxed. We will, for example, extend the day of limited operations to 8 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. to allow businesses to have an additional hour in the evening, where businesses would have closed at 5 p.m. to allow customers and staff to conform to the 7 p.m. start of the nightly curfew. They can now close to the public at 6 p.m. Businesses will not only have a 5-day work week to operate, but an additional hour as well on each day of limited business operations. Please note that the nightly curfew will continue and that it must be adhered to. Nightly curfew will now start at 8 p.m. and end an hour earlier at 5 a.m. the following day. Our medical experts have advised us that these additional hours at the start and the end of the day are important to allow not only for more economic activity, but to allow for our citizens to get more engaged in exercise routines such as walking and jogging, as this is one of the ways we fight the COVID disease. It is good for us, both physically and psychologically. It will also help to boost our immune system. While we continue to urge our citizens and residents to take every precaution, these regulations have seen, under advice of the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Hazel, a gradual relaxation of the very strict guidelines which we have been living under for the past few weeks. The CMO has now recommended that beaches can be reopened for swimming and exercising only between the hours of 5:30 a.m. and 9 a.m. A physical distance of at least 6 feet must be maintained between individuals unless they are members of the same household. But there should be absolutely no beach parties nor picnics allowed. Let me repeat. There should be absolutely no beach parties nor picnics allowed. These activities increase the risk of transmission of the virus, which we are working so very hard to contain. As we continue restrictions to maintain social distancing protocols, to slow down the transmission of COVID-19 and help our country cope with this pandemic, we are mindful that as a people, we have this deep sense of pride, that we want to work, that we have to provide for ourselves and our families. We, the members of your government, we really do listen and we respond wisely, being ever thoughtful about how we go about easing restrictions. In all this, we continue to take advice from the Chief Medical Officer and the Medical Chief of Staff. These two, along with the entire health fraternity, the NEOC, the security forces, and several other entities, have been given yeoman's service to our beloved country at this moment of greatest need. The COVID-19 task force has met and had discussions with the Christian Council and the Evangelical Association. There has been an extensive discussion on the manner in which religious freedom, public health, and infection prevention can work together. They will meet again very soon, after the church leadership would have consulted with their fellow pastors before a final determination can be made regarding how church gatherings can resume without endangering the health of anyone. While some of us may yearn for more social interaction at bars, restaurants, and party establishments in the evenings and on weekends, our medical experts continue to warn us that we are not yet out of the woods, and they have advised us against this. We continue to heed their advice, follow the science, and pray to God for wisdom and protection on all of us. The strict guidelines that we initiated some weeks ago have proven to be successful, and they have allowed us to flatten the curve. It has been some 18 days since we last had a confirmed case of the COVID-19 virus. We now only have 3 confirmed cases isolated and recovering. We note that some 52 students brought home by my government last week, as well as a smaller number of other citizens and residents, are still in quarantine. They all still need to be tested. Our borders will continue to remain closed for now, so as to prevent and/or delay the possibility of importing any new cases. Danger still lurks, and we must all remain vigilant. We are mindful of the hotspots in the United States of America and the United Kingdom. We mourn the loss of lives there and everywhere. We note with sadness and regret that several of our nationals overseas have died as a consequence of COVID-19. We extend our sincere condolences to all their loved ones at home and abroad, now in grief and distress. We invoke God's protection and mercy and our people and this, our beloved Federation. My fellow citizens and residents, we are living through a most trying experience, one which none of us has ever had to go through before. My government is committed to keeping all of our citizens and residents safe. The health of our nation is our number one priority. We know that we are all in this together, and in unity, we will overcome this pandemic. Now is not the time to take unnecessary and risky chances. So let us heed caution. Our lives really depend on it. May God bless each and every one of us, and may God bless our beloved St. Kitts and Nevis. I thank you. May God bless you.
Whether you're at home or abroad, ZIZ's social media platforms help you stay connected with what's going on in St. Kitts and Nevis. Keep up with daily events by liking our Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter at ZBC Online. Like our pictures on Instagram and subscribe to our videos on YouTube. Also, you can watch us live on the ZIZ mobile app and our website, zizonline.com. No matter where you are, ZIZ is just a click away. ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation, reaching you wherever you are.
People seems allergic to working, but I don't really understand why Lauder seems addicted to liming. That no work for me, though my friends them telling me my salary's small. I've got to keep working. I've got to keep working. I may be starting small, but I aiming tall. So I keep on working. Legends, no work, no pay. We depend on no one to stretch out their hand. Even though my money little, every week I try my best to put a little in the piggy bank. Nice man, doom day, doom day. In this life, if you're not working, you will depend on somebody else who will call the shot as to whether you eat or not. In spite of the type of employment, either the money management, you won't be able to put something away for a rainy day. Then my friends them telling me my salary is small. I've got to keep working. I've got to keep working. I may be starting small, but I aiming tall. So I keep on working. So I keep on working. No work, no pay. I depend on no one to stretch out their hand. Even though my money little, every week I try my best to put a little in the piggy bank. Nice man. Only $5 me got. But me happy work for me money. I keep there. Aye. Nice man. Hard work never hurt nobody, and is the antidote for being bones. It's not how much you make, but what you do with it. The delight in slacking I can't afford. Without the money management, you won't be able to put something away for a rainy day. Yet my friends them telling me my salary is small. I've got to keep working. I've got to keep working. I may be starting small, but I aiming tall. So I keep on working. So I keep on working. Vibes, no work, no pay. We depend on no one to stretch out their hand. Even though we money little, every week we try our best to put a little in the piggy bank. Nice man. Dunde, dunde. Guys so sweet. Pop that cherry, thank you. Simple. Alright. Pop that cherry. Come for the mic now. Hello. Hi. Hi. No work. Hi. No pay. Hi. No work. No pay. No work. No pay. I depend on no one to stretch out their hand. Even though my money little, every week I try my best to put a little in the piggy bank. Pop that cherry. Dunde, dunde.
The Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Timothy Harris, the Ms. Merclyn Hughes, who is the in charge of immigration and the compliance task force for St. Kitts and Nevis, and of course several questions and comments prior to our break. We now go straight to the Prime Minister and give him an opportunity to respond. Mr. Prime Minister, over to you, sir.
Thanks very much. I want to again thank Nurse Garnett, one of our outstanding health professionals who have spent most of her working life, in fact, perhaps all of her working life, delivering healthcare services. And so it was good that she was our first scholar. I want to thank her for her usual commendation and, of course, encouragement which she has extended. To her, I extend Happy Mother's Day wishes. Carl Brown spoke to or asked about the role of persons in the diaspora. Clearly, it's an ongoing important role. Citizens with interest in the country. We have seen even today the first scholar was Nurse Garnett, Nurse Sylvia Garnett. She is in the state of Florida, I think. She has called in. She has left us with her prayers. She has shared experiences. These, of course, are all important to us as we look for best practices and we attempt to situate where we are as a country and people vis-a-vis other countries. So there is no diminution of their role in this fight against COVID. Indeed, it is helpful when they share some of their experiences, because our people get a better understanding of the seriousness of the pandemic which we face. I want in this regard to extend condolences too to many families here who have had loved ones abroad in the USA, in the UK, who have died as a consequence of the COVID-19, and our thoughts and prayers are with them. With respect to persons with many jobs attempting to cash in on the generous package which we offer, the $1,000 per month support to persons who had been disadvantaged, I would say that the Social Security is tasked and receiving the applications from the Labor Department will be to ensure as far as possible the records are checked and double dipping is not allowed. Essentially, the support was intended to assist persons who would have lost their jobs as a consequence of COVID-19 and whose earning capacity was less than $1,000. That is why in the case of someone who would have lost their job, displaced completely for the time being, that person would likely receive $1,000. In the case of someone else, for example, a security officer who continues to work at a hotel property, they may get, for example, 3-4 days. And in this particular case, it is the difference between the $1,000 and their earning capacity which would be extended to them. So if they are now getting, say, $800, they will get a top-up of a $200 to bring their minimum income support up to $1,000. With respect to the difficulties of accessing the Social Security via online, that is something that I am sure the Director or the CEO of Social Security, Mr. Antonio Maynard, the Chairman of the Board and the Senior Minister will pay attention to. We want these things to be as user-friendly as possible. One of the reasons why the online route was taken, of course, was to address issues of social distancing and physical distancing and to minimize the transmission of the virus, which has a higher probability in circumstances where we have overcrowding. And so I know that it's a matter with the Social Security should keep on the consistent monitoring and advisement. They should have a hotline in the event persons are having difficulty. There must be a supportive framework. So I'm asking the CEO, Mr. Antonio Maynard, and the Director, Mr. Walters, I think is, to pay particular attention to ensure that there is some interface, that those who would want to access the system, they are able to speak to someone and to get a courteous response. The caller, Ira McMahon, attempt basically to raise the issue, well, why Social Security is involved, and you ask yourself, is Ira serious? We are saying here that we need all hands on deck. The fight against the pandemic requires an all-of-society approach. Every individual must do what he or she can do to help to, as it were, flatten the curve. And for some, it will be just following diligently the health prescriptions. For others, it will be making tangible support to the efforts. And in this regard, I want to commend the Social Security. Social Security was intended as the institution in the country that would assist workers, principally who had suffered loss of income as a result of certain adversities. Among those adversities, of course, would be sickness, maternity, and in the case of that, their family would benefit, injury benefit. All these are part of benefits with Social Security across the region, and in many member states provide. I will go so far to say that Social Security is in fact involving unemployment benefit, and that is provided by several schemes within the region. Indeed, we already have a draft Unemployment Benefit Act that had been provided with input from the actuary for St. Kitts and Nevis to join the line of entities, Social Security entities, that are provided unemployment benefit. And to some extent, we draw upon that reality to the Social Security to be engaged in assisting workers who are now having difficulties with their earnings. So there's nothing abnormal or untoward about Social Security doing this. It is exactly what every progressive scheme should be able to do. If that benefit was already passed in law, at least for the relevant period of time, whether it was 3 months or more, workers who had become unemployed would have gone to that scheme. So there is nothing wrong with respect to that. I'm a little surprised that Ira McMahon, in his mischievous way, would ask about the opening up of the local economy. That progress has started, and it started a long time. I don't know if he has been at home in shelter, but indeed he would be aware that we started first with 2 days, then we have increased it to 4 days of limited business operation, and by next week we have gone full week, 5 days. 5 days, Mr. McMahon, which is a normal work week for most people within the country. You can't get a better example of the opening up of the economy by that. Indeed, you now have more people going out to work. And indeed, this morning we had some statistics which are important. The Compliance Task Force has visited some 852, and this is just a sample of the population of entities. And when you hear the combination, the composition of them, you know that business is going on. Saloons, barbershops, bakeries, clothing store, doctor, supermarket, mini-marts, government department, furniture trader, hardware store. All of these are opening. I am surprised that Mr. McMahon is unaware of that reality. And we also are aware that construction has started. If he passes to go to Molyneux, he would see the roundabout there is taking shape. If he were to pass the lodge, he will see construction taking place on a multi-purpose community center there in the community. If he were to go to Old Road, he would see that work has started there. And if he visits several other private properties, he will understand that again, the economy is opened up. And indeed, from the calls we have had this morning about business and the selling up from, Mr. McMahon must know that, again, the economy is opening up. And all the burden of, as it were, putting an economy to work cannot be left to the government. In no country it is like that. It must be, again, an all-of-society approach. To get the economy back to work, the churches must play their part, and they have been. To get the economy back to work, the private sector must play a part, and they have been, to the Chamber of Industry and through other entities. So we are moving along very well, and we will want to keep it that way. We started, for example, where you had about 4 or 5 persons for public transportation buses. We are now up to about 8 or 9. Clearly then, facilitation is being done. We move from a situation where farmers could not engage to where now farmers and fishers have extended time in which to ply their trade. So the economy is moving positively in the right direction. The issue of surplus is an interesting one, that Ira McMahon would raise that, because of course before 2015 largely the conversation between 2010 and 2015 was about the mismanagement of the economy. How did we, for the first time in our history as an independent country, reach the IMF to borrow $225 million to pay salaries and wages and to buy toilet paper and other inputs for our JNF hospital and other hospitals in the country. That was the story. The story was about the haircut to the church, to the National Bank, to Social Security, to Bank of Nova Scotia, and all those other people on whom it was imposed. It was about $131 million in haircut suffered by other external entities. And it was also about the 600% increase in our water bill, 85% increase in electricity, that for 3 consecutive years we had, as it were, no increments. And from 2012 or before, the non-establishment workers were denied their honorarium, which was paid annually. Those were the conversations. We were talking about $775 million indebtedness passed for the land for debt swap. So it is refreshing now on the team unity. In the short of 5 years, we are moving from this deficit and fiscal mismanagement to the surplus generated by the Team Unity administration. The caller who raised the question about the liquor, I would ask our immigration chief to deal with that particular matter, and because that is one of issue of compliance, which a task force I'm sure would have tackled with. Mr. Politics raised the issue of the significance of May 14. It is an important date. It is a date in which the parliamentary life would have ended, but it has no other significance in terms of the management of the country, because the law provides that the government can function for the next 90 days. And that is why we have always said that we have up to August, middle August, as the date for the holding of the general elections. So that really, and we see the reality of that in Barbados. Just elections, last election, they too had their parliament, as it were, life coming to an end and went into the 90-day window. All these are standards within our system of democracy, which we work very carefully here. And so the government still continues to be properly, effectively, constitutionally aligned even after the 14th of May. And as we said, we have until August. I want to thank the other callers who called, extending their commendation for the excellent handling of COVID-19 and the excellent management of the country in general. Austin Coker gave an alternative view with respect to the selling of the rum. In his view, this is not the time for persons to be talking about selling and drinking rum, and he is entitled to that view. We have the other view that has been expressed by the caller, and I will ask our immigration head to perhaps give a view, a perspective. Why is it that there is this particular restriction?
Thank you again, Mr. Prime Minister. As I mentioned it, subsection 14, which says, notwithstanding the provisions of the Liquor License Act, Chapter 18, Section 21, all retail liquor licenses are suspended once a period of emergency is declared in relation to COVID-19. Superintendent Cromwell Henry appeared on one of your Inside the News programs a few weeks ago, sir, and he addressed this issue. I asked him to send me his presentation so that I can read it again, so that persons can understand the rationale behind such. And his presentation said only retail liquor licenses are suspended under the current emergency regulations. Businesses with wholesale licenses, such as supermarkets and liquor stores, can continue to sell alcohol. The retention of the regulation is not to restrict the consumption or sale of alcohol generally, but rather to prevent the type of group socializing or large gatherings that occur in a bar or rum shop environment. Remember, COVID is spread when respiratory droplets from an infected individual comes into contact with another person and gets into their mouth, eyes, or nose. A 6-foot physical distances is recommended to prevent the spread by person-to-person contact. It is not very easy to maintain this 6-foot distance in a bar with persons consuming alcohol. Alcohol suppresses the central nervous system and impairs one's ability to judge distances, among other things, hence the restriction at retail licensed premises. Supermarkets and other alcohol wholesalers cannot allow alcohol consumption on their premises, which is why there's no restriction on these businesses. To sell wholesale means to sell liquor in any quantity of not less than 1 pint to be consumed off or away from the premises. Off or away from the premises. Whereas to sell retail means to sell liquor in any quantity to be consumed on or off any licensed premises. And it goes on to state what liquor is. It includes brandy, whiskey, rum, gin, wines, liqueurs, beer, porter, cider, and all portable spirituous alcoholic, malt and fermented liquors of any kind or sort whatsoever, but shall not include bay water and bay rum. That's how we recognize, because we live in a small society and we know that once persons congregate at these rum shops or these bars, that they are always in clusters. And even now with these regulations in place, my team has had to speak with a whole lot of the owners of these businesses and continuously educate them, because our objective is not to put anyone out of business. We want business to thrive, and so, but we want persons to be responsible. And most of them are saying that they can't control it. The people come, they sell them the beer or the carib or whatever, and they open it outside and they stay around. So we see that they're not in a position to control their customers to say buy and leave. And so therefore this is why this regulation and this one in particular is in place. So I hope that satisfies the call as to why we're coming down hard on the retail liquor licenses.
And thank you very much, Ms. Hughes. I have a question for you, Ms. Hughes, before we go back to the Prime Minister, and before we go back and take a few calls. I know you've spoken about it, Superintendent Henry has spoken about it, the Prime Minister has spoken about it, the whole issue of the social beings that we are. We love to be close, we love to hold, we love to touch, we are Caribbean people. Now, when it comes to ferries and buses in particular, and now exercises, suddenly people who have been sitting down for a long time want to exercise, huh? So what advice would you offer again? Because I was reading an article online with a very catchy headline. It says, 3 potential futures for COVID-19. Recurring small outbreaks, a monster wave, or a persistent crisis. So in that context, can you just speak to us a bit about using the bus, public transportation if you like, ferries, and when you say 5 o'clock in the morning, you can relax the curfew, you want to exercise now. So social distancing, physical distancing, those 3 areas, please.
Yes, that's why I said earlier that it comes down to the individual wanting to ensure and protect themselves. It comes down to individual choices. The law, the restrictions are there in the regulations, but we as individuals have got to want to a country that is safe. Therefore, we're going on the buses. You must ensure, one of my officers actually stopped the bus, and when she opened to go inside the bus, it already had 9 passengers, and he was telling her to pull down one of the seats, and she said, no, I can't pull down a seat because that is breaking what the regulation says, no more than 9 passengers. So it's, you see, where the individual took control of their own safety as well. The other passengers in the bus could have even said to him, you already have the maximum number of persons. And persons going on the beach, our beaches are relatively small, So you go and you try and find an area on the beach where you could maintain distance. You don't want to be in a cluster, because even in the water you're talking and the droplets are flying all over the place. So persons, for me, I am saying to individuals, take control of your own health and security when it comes to that. The ferries, they are more manageable because there's security at the ferry terminals, and they know what the law requires, that only 2 passengers per seat in on any ferry, and therefore they would know what is the maximum number of persons to allow to go through the gate to board the ferries. And with the buses, again, it comes down to individuals. The bus drivers, a lot of them, one of them sent me a message and said he is one of the good ones who comply, and I say, well, congratulations, I wish all of them would be like you. But they must take responsibility for their action. Dr. Laws and Dr. Wilkinson have said over and over again, you buy a bottle of alcohol, you dilute it, and you use that. That could be your safety measure in terms of persons who are coming on board your bus, because you have to go home to your family as well. And so it comes down to the individual taking responsibility for their health.
I know I'm going to get some flack for this one, but I have to say it. The numbers are showing that more men are confirmed cases than women. Is it something about men, perhaps, that knowing is not necessarily doing, and that men take more risks in this matter, Ms. Hughes? I don't know. What's your view?
Well, it appears that way because it's mostly the men who wants to congregate at the bar shops, and it seems to be a macho thing where they don't feel as though. And I guess because early o'clock when we first started to hear about this virus, it was said that it mostly affected older men, and then that went through the window once we started seeing it got to the US, and we started seeing more younger persons affected and dying as well. And it came to our shores, and as God would have it, we have not had anyone in ICU. We have not had to use any of our ventilators, thank God for that. And so persons, I believe, are letting down the guard and think that we are out of the woods and we can do as we please and we could go back to life as normal. But we are hearing again about the new normal, and we have got to get with looking at the news, following the news on social media. We are seeing what is happening out there. And it's only the grace of God that has kept us where we are. And I know that the CMO, she's such a tiny little person, but she's so talawa. She drives, because she said, I am not going to allow a Wuhan to happen and to occur in St. Kitts. We are not going to allow it to happen. Sometimes she said, Merclyn, we can't allow this to happen. And so we have to help. We have to do our part. As individuals of our homes until 6 in the morning, we're not used to that. We get up when we want to, we go when we want to, we come back when we want to. And here it is now, we have to be told. And so a lot of us, for us, it's new. We're told that we have to wear a mask. As a police officer for all my life, we arrest people for wearing a mask. And no.
Oh, you arrest them for not wearing it?
Yes, and now we arrest you if you're not wearing it. So you see what our new normal is? We had no control as to people go to the bars and you drink as you please, and you're drunk and disorderly, you get arrested for being disorderly. But my thing is that we have got to understand, this is not the Prime Minister, the CMO, Ms. Hughes or Mr. Samuel saying because we don't care. It's because we care why we are saying observe these restrictions, and we pray that it only lasts for a while. But we don't know. This virus is baffling everyone, everywhere. This is the first time the whole world, we're accustomed to having a flu, yes, and every year we come out of a flu, it gets the name of the road march in St. Kitts and Nevis. But then it leaves our bodies in at least 2 weeks and you're back to normal. You could go back to your family, you can go back to what you're accustomed to. No, we don't know when. Are we going to be wearing masks now for the rest of our lives? Is this our new normal? Are we going to have to stay and sit 6 feet away from each other, talk 6 weeks? What is our new normal going to look like? So we don't know, but we just have to right now conform. There's no vaccine, even though we're hearing of how near they may be to one. We don't have a vaccine at this time, so we have got to just accept what it is for the time being.
And Mr. Prime Minister, we're going to go back to the telephone lines in just a moment, but you are the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis at a time of COVID-19. Now, here you are juggling the needs of people, and then of course you have the needs of the economy, and then you have of course the hurricane season. So it couldn't get any better for you, because now we're hearing about 20 named storms in this Atlantic hurricane season. You have a surplus, but you have to sustain the economy, and you're facing more and more events coming your way without any particular warning. What do you want to say to people about the absolute need to respect the fact that you are loosening up a few of the restrictions, but there's still the potential for a monster wave? The disaster of 1918 and all that speaks to that. The record is there. You can look it up yourself. What do you want to say that you haven't said already?
Well, it's just repetition, really, and to continue to encourage our people not to take the COVID-19 for granted. I said in my opening remarks, and it bears repeating, it is not over until it is really over. And we will not be completely free of it until we are able to get this vaccine going. It behoves us then to ensure that we do as much as we can in accordance with the regulations. Mrs. Hughes is right. The regulations are intended to keep us safe, and we have to put our health beyond everything else, because it is okay to say, I want to go back on the job. Let me go and work. And you get X dollars from the job. You end up paying X plus X plus X in order to to fulfill the prescriptions that now become necessary because you would have contracted the virus. It is not worth it to risk your health unnecessarily at this time. So take the advice as seriously as you can and apply them. The good empowering thing about it is that everything that they ask can reasonably be done if you put your mind to it. Boost your immune system, you can do that. Eat properly. Increase your intake of vitamin C. Pay particular attention to hygiene, in particular hand hygiene. Soap and water readily available. Use it as often as possible. Avoid touching your face and in particular your nose and mouth. That is something that we can do. Try to observe social distancing and wear the mask when you're going outside of your shelter. Several simple things that every able-bodied person can do, and we're just asking people, again, not to take it for granted. Continue to observe these things, or else you could put not only yourself, your family, your community, but our country in a worse state. And very quickly, I forgot to address the matter that the caller raised about accessing the Social Security claims. I want to make the point that the Social Security received several thousand claims, and those claims have to be analyzed and sorted through, because it is not every applicant is a valid one. There are some persons who will try a smartness and have applied, for example, under several employers. Social Security has to check these things. That takes time. The validity of every claim has to be assessed before a payment has been made. There are also some practical difficulties that would have created the problem in the speed of processing. For example, some employers may have deducted your monies but have not paid Social Security. So when that record gets there is no way in which they could verify that you, in fact, has been an employer, you have been an employer for that particular entity. Issues like these are going to need further investigation and would delay. What we can say, it is not that Social Security is processing once per month. Every workday, Social Security staff is mandated to process whatever claims are submitted and make determination what qualifies, which of the claims qualify for payment. The good news so far, 3,500 persons, I repeat, 3,500 persons have already been paid. That is, the claims have been processed, approved, and paid by the Social Security scheme. So that's $3.5 million have already been paid out under the stimulus package. Those whose application has been submitted and who have not yet received, of course, you are free to call the Social Security Board or the Labor Department to get some information as to where your claim is at. As I said, sometime the fault may be with the employer. There are other cases, I am advised, where persons submit data which is incorrect, and the incorrect data could be with respect to your bank information. Now, errors can be made in any circumstances, so this will not be new. And so, but those matters have to be rectified before any payment is being made. I would want to urge people to be careful when you're filling forms. Make sure that the names are spelled just as they are on your official documents. For example, your Social Security card, so that when claims are being made, it is easy to verify the legitimacy of the claims that are being put before the board. But we are making progress. 3,500 persons have already been paid out of the several thousands that would have submitted their claim. And every day, more persons will be paid as the processing takes place.
We're live with the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Timothy Harris, as well, the Chief Immigration Officer and Head of the COVID-19 Compliance Task Force, Ms. Merclyn Hughes. We're going to take your calls now. You've been waiting to speak, so let's take this call. Call you live and on the air. Good afternoon to you.
Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Bacchus and my Prime Minister, Mr. Timothy Harris.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Yes, it's the nuts lady here, the nuts lady. You know, Mr. PM, I have a problem right now, right? You know, because, you know, I don't at the terminal 21 years now. And I find we have a little bar. We all run bars down there. So you say no alcohol and no this, no that, but what we going to do? Because so the ladies just speak a while ago, like, down there is not going to open right now. But things going on. One lady went there yesterday, opened she bar and putting up all kind of, you know, menu what she says she got one, maybe she never even sell yet. So some people doing it and some people ain't doing it. I know I ain't doing it for a while. So what are we going to do? Because no money there to pay the bills. And this bar, some selling, some ain't selling. The caution want them trying to support, and the none care want them doing as they like. So you are going to come and rectify to us tomorrow, Monday, when they say we're going to go to 5 days go up now. What's going to happen? We're going to be able to sell as we like the drinks, or will be no drinks at all. So we're going to just got to turn the bar into a food vendor place or what. So I will snap the ear because, you know, it's ridiculous. Nothing is not going right at all. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you for calling, ma'am. We'll hear from the Prime Minister in just a moment. I'll call you live and on the air. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. This is Unity here.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to say something about the corona. People need to just do what they have to do until listing pass, because if you have small business and you open it and you get it, And the guy don't let the small business. So just let me just take it easy until this thing pass. Prime Minister, next thing I want to say about this surplus, because somebody's talking about surplus and maybe surplus is a debt. But I was telling them that you end up with a surplus because, to budget money. When money gets in some of us hands, Mr. Backer said, never hear this one before. Money fails some people. And when money gets in some people's hands, it's a poof, money gone. But when you see money like you and you know how to budget it, it carries you, and that is how you end up with surplus. Okay?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to be budgeting money so good and able to take control of the people's money. And about the double salary, there's a double salary to which people, because when you're getting 80,000 and you double, you're going to end up with 160. But if you're working as a doctor and I clean in this year, your salary can be the same. And if I get in $200 per month and I get 200 in it, it's more than what I work for. So thank you for the double salary. And if you have to ever go back to the IMS, you go back to Accra. You love the people and you love the country. So thank you to keep on doing what you are doing and budget the money good, okay?
Thank you, I will.
Money gone and poof and gone. So you know how to budget money like you. That's what I'm going to stay with you. So you have a safe afternoon. Bye.
Bless you, bless you.
All right, bye-bye. We go back to the phone lines. Call your life and on the air. Good afternoon. Hello?
Good afternoon, Mr. Backus.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon to you.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I'm live, Mr. Backus?
Yes, Mr. Hardest. Yes, of course you're live.
Thank you very much,
man. You're live, man.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Mr. Backus. And good afternoon to the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris, and good afternoon to Ms. Hughes, Immigration, etc.
Good afternoon.
Now, Mr. Prime Minister, I want to say to you that there's an old saying that says, empty vessels make the most noise. So, don't take on a lot of these empty rhetorics that is coming on and saying all kind of things. Stay focused. Keep the ship of state ahead. You have been doing a very, 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 very good job, Mr. Prime Minister. I've been talking about it all the time. As the head of state of the ship captain, Mr. Prime Minister, you are the best. You are the best. Because if it was otherwise, copper might be smoking with pipe. That's an old saying again. Misusing what those old sayings. Right? So, Mr. Prime Minister, Team Unity have been doing a very, very, very good job. And it is evident this big stimulus package, the best in the world, compared to other countries who getting $200 and $300. We here in the Federation of St. Kitts are getting $1,000. You can't complain. You're not working because of the situation, the pandemic, and you're still getting money. Mr. Prime Minister, schools are closed. But the Honorable Sean K. Richards, Deputy Prime Minister, make it, put in place a plan that those persons who are less fortunate students could get a hot meal at that time. Which part of this world this is happening? And everybody is affected by the pandemic. This is in place for our people because we have a government that love people, that love the country and taking care of everybody. Don't talk about the roof program, Mr. Prime Minister. I don't even want to touch on that, you hear? Because that is so dear to my heart when I see all these people getting the roof fixed for free. Palm labor, everybody getting the roof fixed for free. And when I hear the gentleman came today and was talking, all negative, Mr. Prime Minister, up to now he haven't not congratulated the government and the lot of good that they have been doing. And because of prudent spending, that is why we have this big surplus today, Mr. Prime Minister. You want to big you up on that? Because if we didn't have that, if it was in the hands of the IMF that Denzel Douglas took us to, proper with a smoke with pipe again, Mr. Backus. So, big up to Team Unity, and I want to say in ending Mr. Bacchus, that we in this country, we in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, we are happy, you know, to have a good government like Team Unity, Mr. Bacchus. A good government. People complain about nothing. In the Great America, we see people are falling. In England, in Spain, in France, people are dying every day. Here in our beloved Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, not one death. Cheers to Team Unity. And nobody wants to come on the opposition side and to congratulate the government for what they have been doing. And all the forces who are behind the government. But yet, they want to come, they want to bash, and they want to criticize the government. Come on, man, done with that. Country about ourselves. Let us move on. They come and they're talking about election. Well, I want to ask them a question, Mr. Bacchus. Which is important at this present point in time? Whether the election or our health and our well-being and the pandemic. Which is important? Let them choose. They can't choose two. They got to choose one. And we, the government, decide that the pandemic is important and we're going to deal with that. Thank you very much, Mr. Bacchus.
Yes, Mr. Hardis, thank you very much for your contribution. Our phone numbers are 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. We go back to the phone lines again. Caller, you're live and on the air. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Bacchus.
Mr. Macwell, on your back.
Yes, okay. Yes, I'm back. This one is from Mrs. Hughes. Okay. I'm sure as our immigration professional, you would be thinking of life after our borders are reopened. Could you tell us what are your considerations at this time? What changes in procedures and anticipated? In the news just a while ago, we heard that the FAA, I think it was, has downgraded our airports in the region. What do you think are the implications of that, and what changes can we expect in response? And Mr. Prime Minister, since the matter of the May 14th date was raised, do you foresee drastic changes in the way campaigning is done and how our elections are going to be run? It is obvious from the campaign rhetoric that you just engaged in trying to answer my questions that some formal debate should become a new feature so that, for instance, you can explain your role and involvement in accumulating that debt that you spoke of. After all, you were part of the government during that time. Similarly, the IMF debacle. You were all part of the government at that time. So, you know, we should definitely have some debate on all these things going forward. And I'm afraid that the COVID-19 situation has led to a kind of skewed campaign in that you basically use all the media, have unfettered, it seems, access to all the media to give your point of view, but the opposition's is not, cannot have the same time, not even on the national public radio that you promised to free up. Okay? So can you answer those questions for me, please?
All right, Mr. Blackwell, thank you for calling. Let's go back to the phone lines. Caller, you're on the air. Hello? Hello, caller? I think the caller is listening to the radio. Just turn on the radio a bit. Hello? All right, that call is gone, man. Let's go back to the phone lines and get somebody else up. Caller, you're on the air. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bacchus.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon to you.
How are you?
Doing fine.
All right. My PM.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Miss Hughes.
Good afternoon.
I want you all to stay focused, please. Don't let me kind of rubbish there. So, the man who just done talk there, he don't need no assistance or nothing, because he was in the government, still didn't go get money.
No, caller, I can't let you say it on the radio. I don't have anything to substantiate those charges, and I cannot have you go down that particular route. If you know something has been done, perhaps you need to report to the police and have an investigation done, but I can't allow you to make statements like that on the radio that I can't substantiate. You're putting me in a lot of trouble. I don't think I need any more trouble dealing with COVID-19 as it is. Let's go back to the phone lines. Call you live and on the air. Hello.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hughes, and Mr. Harris, and Mr.
Bacchus.
Good afternoon.
Just an observation. Some days ago, there was a video circulating of a young man leading a group of other irresponsible young persons to be exercising and gyrating on the street in one of our communities in Bastia. They were jamming or something behind a band. I would just like to know if the compliance group had any opportunity to speak to the leader of that group who was not following any sort of, the group itself was not following any sort of procedures pertaining to mask wearing or distancing themselves from social distancing is the word they use these days. So I would like to know if anything was said to the group leader or the members of the group to ensure that that sort of practice does not occur, or any other young leaders who might come forward and want to do something like that, what effect it could have, and how can we stop that kind of thing, because we know this virus is very easily communicated from one individual to another. And we have had experience in the past with health issues. With a young leader also said that in relation to a situation in the school where persons were getting sick, a young leader said that they're a doctor, they are a parent, and persons should go back into that kind of unhealthy environment, even though the ILO had declared that environment a public health issue because toxic gases were coming out of the septic tanks, hydrogen sulfide, I think it was. And yes, still the leader, the young leader, that friend said, go back inside there. We don't wish that kind of practice in the future. So, could the compliance people please tell us what would be done in situations like that to stop practices of that nature? Thank you.
And thank you very much for calling, sir. Our numbers are 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. We go back to the phone lines. Call, you're on the air. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Bacchus.
Yes, sir, Mr. Politics. Good afternoon.
Now, Ms. Hughes, this question to you. How secure our borders will be for illegal immigrants to come in our country? Because we know that people come in illegally sometimes, especially when things go normal and people forget about what's going on. So how secure our borders will be? Because everybody knows this COVID-19, and some people might come in illegal from some other country where they spread out with it and come to our country, and they will come and go with different places, especially in the Santo Domingan people, especially those people, because they like jump on the vessels and come in and try to come from St. Martin or try to come from wherever they're coming from. So how secure our borders will be for anything like that to happen. You all have a wonderful day, and God bless.
Thank you very much, Mr. Politics. Back to the phone lines we go. Call, you're on the air. Good afternoon. All right, you seem to have missed that call. All right, 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. We're going to take one more call, then we're going to go to the Prime Minister and Ms. Hughes for their responses. Call you live and on the air. Good afternoon to you.
Yes, good afternoon to everybody there.
Yes, good
Prime
afternoon.
Minister, you, Mr. Bacchus, and Ms. Hughes.
Yes,
Mrs. Hughes.
Mrs. Hughes.
Okay, I'm a little disappointed that Mr. McMahon didn't ask the question that he keeps asking, because up to Thursday last, he mentioned this $1 billion. At one point he said $1 billion. Then he said over $1 billion and close to $1 billion. So I don't know why he don't make up his mind. He called it twice for the morning, and he should have asked you. The next issue that I have here is that Mother's Day. Now, some people say every day is Mother's Day. I totally agree with that, right? But once a year we wait to celebrate mothers, in most cases officially, so to speak. And I read something just recently about this individual talking about people not going to be able to visit their parents. And well, I don't want nobody to my house. I don't want nobody to come visit me. You come, you start with the gate, you come, you find how we're doing. When fathers they come, I don't want nobody in my house, period. That settles that. Next issue I have is during the time when you were the financial, has to do with money during the former administration, that gentleman again, Mr. McMahon, gives the impression that you had something to do, because you wasn't the only person in cabinet. you had Dr. Douglas and the whole eight of them who was there. So he gave the impression that we all tried to rescue the sugar industry, which we were trying to do. And we all know the quote that was said that he'll never close after his dead body. And either he had to after it was closed. Whose fault? Mr. Harris? No, Mr. Harris had nothing to do with that. There were eight of them there. The next issue, quickly, I just want to say is that I was in town yesterday. Luckily, I met one of those places on Port Zante open, and I was able to buy a liquor and come on and drink it. And while I was there, I heard a fellow with a strong English accent. He said, "But I don't know what I'm doing here, you know." But I'm talking now in my tone. I ain't going to England because people are dead up there, and nobody dying down here. So I'm staying down here. We got to be doing something good. I don't know what it is. And the next issue I have too that was said there on Facebook is that when you all open up and start, well, in the case where you give us 5 days now, you lock down Saturday and Sunday, what happened to those people when they go to work? What are they going to do with the children? How much they want the government to do? How much they want the government to do? The government is opening up slowly. Continue to do it. Because they used to say about the old people who will get it. There's a load of young people now who will get the COVID and they're dead. So I think that what you all are doing is good. I mean, it's going to be hard. Let's face it, hard for a lot of people who are not making a salary. I don't know how they're going to manage, but it's going to be really hard. But Prime Minister, you do this thing slowly here. You don't bother people like Matt Mahan. Please don't bother with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Call you live and on the air. Good afternoon.
Yeah, Mr. Backus Rock here.
Yes, Mr. Rock. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister and Mr. Hughes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Rock.
Yes. Prime Minister, when you take over the mantle of Team Unity and you make your budget, and so on, your manifesto, and the fact remains, the corona is never in the manifesto. The bringing home the children them from school, from Jamaica, never in the manifesto. The house roof on them never in the manifesto. And the different salaries, what you give to workers who work so hard in government and so on, all them never in the manifesto. Mr. Prime Minister, don't study them. Continue to do what you do best to serve your country, what you've been elected for, and concentrate on the next general election coming up. You forget them losers. Okay? God bless you, sir. You have a nice day.
All right, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rock. Much appreciated. Okay, we're going to go to the Prime Minister now. And Ms. Hughes, I'm going to add two quick questions to the lot. The PM has two notepads, not one. There's a lot of questions came his way today. And this has to do with compliance in the context of preparation for the hurricane season. Ms. Hughes, I mean, there's so much you're doing already. But now, in terms of shelters and all that, a question has surfaced as to, yeah, well, it can't be just the way it used to be now. How many people per shelter and all that. So what are some of the early computations, if you like, in terms of compliance as you prepare for the hurricane season? Now, the question goes to the Prime Minister, and somebody sent a question I think the PM is going to like. This one is, Mr. Prime Minister, can we hold the elections with the border closed? So there you go. Mr. Prime Minister, you first, and then Ms. Hughes.
Thank you very much. We have to be very careful at this time and to set the continuing tone for the movement of the country forward in an all-of-society response. The post-COVID era, if we should refer to that when it comes that way, will require that we have every able-bodied person in St. Kitts and Nevis prepared to work in the new norm. And that is going to be important. Some of the practices that are happening now, which persons are taking for granted, will be part of the continuing way. In the period immediately after the COVID, they will continue for some period of time. The mask wearing perhaps will continue for some time. Social distancing will continue. And so the world as we know it will be operating differently with a keener sense and awareness with regard to matters of health. So we are not going back to some of the old-time ways. I want to thank Rock because Rock highlighted the point that our administration has been able to respond even with respect to challenges in unprecedented ways. And in the context of doing so, we still remain the best managed country within the Caribbean region as far as our finances are concerned, and certainly with respect to the rule of law, as the World Justice Report indicated. He's right. After the hurricanes of 2017, we launched a roof or hurricane relief project where we provided support to over 2,500 persons. First time any activity like that had been undertaken by any government in the country of St. Kitts and Nevis, and certainly within the region. For the first time, we were able to pay our civil servants and other employees double salaries some 4 times in a row. Yes, our fiscal discipline and management has allowed us to respond to COVID with an unprecedented $120 million stimulus package, where, for example, our farmers are receiving free seeds, seedlings, free fencing wire, their lands being harrowed. Never before has such generosity been made available. We are seeing that as part of our investment in the post-COVID environment in which food security would loom large, and we have to be prepared. So I want to thank Rock for commending us. Indeed, we did not envisage, and no one envisaged, the widespread consequences of COVID-19. And although we could not have envisaged that it would have happened so quickly in the Caribbean region, where our students in Jamaica would need to come back home. And we had to find the resources to bring them home. Over $250,000 was spent there. But there also is the additional cost of maintaining them in quarantine, both to pay for the physical facilities and also to pay for the other support services required to them. So it has been challenging, and yet to God we give the glory. We have been able to do these things without borrowing 1 cent. And that is the difference between an administration that has prepared itself reasonably well for the rainy day. But this is worse than a rainy day. This is a non-ending storm that has been impacting the entire world. And St. Kitts and Nevis, thanks be to God, has been able to do the best that we can, not just when compared to past situation in the country, but with respect to the region. Someone draw the comparison. While we are offering $1,000 here, in some countries they are offering $300 per month. In some it's $600. In Trinidad and Tobago it's equivalent of 603 EC dollars, and we could go on and on. We have been a most generous government. While some has been yet to receive their due, the commitment we make is that so long as you qualify, you will receive your monies promised. So it's not that others gone before you and you will not get. Once you qualify, you will receive your 3 payments of $1,000. And to date, I am happy to report that over 3,500 persons have already been paid by Social Security. In addition, those who perhaps would not have benefited that route and whose income is under $3,000 have benefited from the poverty alleviation program, where they would receive a stipend, a financial grant, if you will, of $500. So the government has adequate social safety nets in place to help our people at least keep their head above water in this time of global crisis, a crisis created by none of us, a crisis generated abroad, but which is impacting us. And we are certainly managing better than any other country, big or small. I want to say that as I look back at my years as Minister of Finance, the record will show that for the first time in a long history, from 95 to 2008 was the first time that the country would have recorded a surplus. I was Minister of Finance then. In 2009, the country for the second time recorded a surplus. Dr. Timothy Harris was the Minister of Finance then. In 2010, when the portfolio of the Ministry of Finance went back to the former Minister of Finance before me, the country went back into a deficit. The record is clear. Under my watch now, for 5 years in a row, not accident, 5 years in a row, the country has generated surplus after surplus and positive growth year after year. In 2010, negative growth; 2011, negative growth; 2012, negative growth. If you accumulate the record over that period, you would see that we have done significantly better. And that is why I'm so very excited when we begin now to have a conversation about surplus generated by Team Unity. Because 5 years before Team Unity, it was about the disastrous mismanagement of the country, the highest indebtedness in the world. And at the end of the day, the buck stopped with the leader, because the leader presides over the cabinet and the leader has certain prerogative. Indeed, if any minister runs afoul, the leader can disqualify that particular person from continuing to participate as a minister of the government. But that is something that we all know, and those who are attempting to raise that want to get involved and get us bogged down at a time of crisis into some issues of mischief. And yes, in social media we have seen, and I think yesterday or the day before it was, that the chairman, Abdir Samuel, was speaking to two individuals, non-resident who he had met here, who had visited St. Kitts. They were put into quarantine and they have come to fall in love with St. Kitts and Nevis. They were deeply appreciative of what they see happening here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And they marvel at the contrast that the smallest country in the world is showing itself to be so strong and powerful in the fight against COVID. And their hometown of the United Kingdom, home country, is under pressure right now, with deaths going beyond what they had originally modeled would happen. Sometimes we just have to take it easy. Do the analysis. We are not a country just by ourselves. There are other countries. And when we compare what is happening in St. Kitts and Nevis to what is happening elsewhere, we have to give Jack the jacket, our conscience be our guide, and we know that we are doing extremely well. So that is what is happening. Mrs. Hughes would deal with the issue raised by Mr. Politics in terms of the illegal migrants, which is a matter that we deal with day by day. I just want to add one component to what she will say, that we are now also thinking about investing in drone support to help us with the surveillance of our borders, because management of our borders, challenging a task as it is for every small island state, it is something that we have to be ever conscious of. and COVID-19 has dramatized in some respect the need for countries to have greater control over their borders. I want to say that for the last 5 years we have been engaged in debate of different types, of different levels, and so the debate will continue long after we would have won the second term. For now, my focus is really on taking the country to a safe harbor in relation to the COVID-19. And we must cross that sea of challenge, of trouble, of pain to a new land, call it the Canaan land. The land where we re-engage our energies, ignite our passion to take St. Kitts and Nevis to the safer place. And that is what the future is about, a safer and stronger country under Team Unity. I want to thank Miss Unity for her call and for commendation about the double salary. What we have done here in so many respects stand in contrast to what is happening all over the world. In St. Lucia, they're having a conversation about how they will pay civil servants. Will they pay them all cash, or they will be cash and treasury bills or bond or some other form of instrument? Right here, people on the government payroll are at home and they are being paid. Let us not take these things for granted. And we have heard from Antigua its own difficulties there. I want to make sure I cover all of the questions. The rum selling matter has been addressed before. I want to say in relation to the matter of the airport, it is important to bear in mind that we are part of a regional entity in the OECS, and the decisions by one unit affect the overall rating or ranking of our aviation authorities, because it is just as the Monetary Council or the EC dollar, no one country's action can affect the overall. Well, no one country's action determine the outcome of the currency. So it is, as it were, a regional effort. Regional decisions are made with respect to the EC dollar. With respect to aviation, regional decisions have to be made. And tomorrow we will meet as heads of government to discuss the matter of the aviation issue that has been part of your news. One of the matter that had been there has been the non-compliance of some member states, I wouldn't want to name them, in terms of certain reforms of a legislative nature. I want to say for the record, St. Kitts and Nevis has already made those legislative enactments. But the failure of others meant that when one viewed the region through the lens of the Eastern Caribbean Authority, then the region itself gets a bad mark or unsatisfactory mark on that matter. So it is issues like those we are going to have to deal with, and hopefully tomorrow's meeting, which should be around 10:30 or thereabout, would bring some answers as to the way forward. And that is just a general comment with respect to that particular matter. It's an ongoing matter, and it is a matter that impact all member states, because all of us have to make determinations on what it is we are going to do for the aviation space. Those, I think, one note from the Nuts Lady to say thank you for sharing your concerns. We hope in the interim you're either able to claim the $1,000 or you're able to get on the PAP program. Clearly, we don't want you to endanger your health. We will have the compliance task force, and Mrs. Hughes, who leads it, is here to go have a second look or maybe a third look at what is happening there at the terminal, the ferry terminal. We certainly want small businesses to thrive, but you cannot do it at the risk of your health or at the risk of endangering anyone's health. So therefore, you're not going to be able to have crowds there. You're not going to be allowed to have persons, as it were, buy alcohol, use it there, We know, and Mrs. Hughes went through that, what impact that can have, the kind of robust conversation that ensue when people imbibe the alcohol and so on. But we will do our best that we can when the compliance task force come to look again at the situation. You are not alone. The government is with you, and the government is doing its very best in a very careful manner to open up all avenues of business again. But we have to do it right, and we have to do it on the basis of advice given both by the police, because there are security issues, and both from the health professional team. Those are the critical, and of course other persons involved in issues of work safety at work, because now the social distancing is critical. The matter of sanitation is critical, and these are some of the matters, the new norms that we are trying to get entities to be conscious of and to put mechanisms in place to deal with these so that we do not transmit the disease. But we are with you, Nuts Lady. We feel for you. It is challenging for all of us. Whatever we can do to help you, we will. Please, you can give me a call or WhatsApp me, and you can contact this number really, 661-1136, and my assistants would give some help to you in accessing some other supports if you are not already accessing them. 661-1136. Thank you for understanding, and thank you for your support. Let's keep praying for the country and hope for the best that we defeat this. But importantly, even if we defeat it and our neighbors do not, we still will have the challenge. And that is why border security becomes so critically important. And that is why we are looking, for example, at bringing into being more effective surveillance of our coastal waters in particular through application of drones. Thank you, Mr. Bacchus.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Ms. Hughes?
Yes, Mr. Bacchus. Just to piggyback on what the Prime Minister said to the Nuts Lady, I would also like to advise her that she can cook her food and it's takeaway. Just as any other restaurant, we're not allowing persons to sit down and eat a meal, but you can prepare the meal and it's takeaway. You ensure that persons maintain their 6 feet distances between, and they go with the food. And you can sell non-alcoholic drinks. It's not just liquor and liqueur. You can sell non-alcoholic drinks. So be creative, be innovative, and keep your business going in the meantime as we go through this pandemic. A gentleman spoke about life after the borders open, and the Prime Minister more or less addressed it. But in the meantime, what is going on behind the scene is that the chiefs of immigration, controllers of customs, police, and other security forces are a part of Zoom meetings almost on a weekly basis, where we discuss the way forward. What is our new normal going to be like? Health we recognize is going to have to play a pivotal role in it. It will be driven, it must be driven at this time, because we're talking about a very serious virus. So it must be driven by health, the sciences. We were conducting surveillance and screening since January, and that is why we were able to catch these some of these persons and put them in quarantine very, very early. So we recognize also that going forward, it will have to be a stakeholders initiative. Everything now will have to be stakeholder driven. So we're looking at the airlines, CASPER, the health, police, the defense force, the Ministry of Tourism, the hoteliers, immigration, custom, coast guard, fire and rescue. All we recognize now that it is all inclusive, and it is not no particular agency now who will be driving the mechanisms to ensure that our federation is safe. And this is across the OECS and the CARICOM. Up Thursday, there was a Zoom meeting where immigration, police, customs took part in, and it geared towards PPE. how will all of these frontline officers, they were taught via Zoom using the technology for 3 hours how to really utilize the PPE equipment. Someone spoke about the group jamming. Well, I'm not aware of it, but I would like to remind citizens that the police and the defense force are still the law enforcement officers in the Federation. You see something, you report it to the police and the defense force. The task force is geared primarily towards businesses to ensure that businesses conform to the regulations, especially when it speaks to masks, the wearing of masks in public places, observing the 6 feet social and physical distances, the non-sale of retail liquor, and the hygiene. You know, we're paying particular attention to those areas, and we want the public to continue to engage the police and the security forces, because that is what they're there for as well. How secure the borders will be, the Prime Minister addressed that. Just before we went into the pandemic, we were discussing the utilizing the drones to help in patrolling and surveilling our coastlines. The Coast Guard, we know, has stepped up on their patrols, and we again encourage the public to be our eyes and our ears on the ground. With the same thing with respect to the illegal immigrants, again, we are going to rely heavily on our citizens to be a part of. I found a message that circulated a few days ago that came from a gentleman who visited St. Kitts from England, and I remember when they were told that they would be placed in quarantine for 2 weeks, some of them opted to go back to England. And he put this story. He said, here's a story of how they had handled the COVID-19 crisis in St. Kitts and Nevis. The last time I flew out to St. Kitts Nevis from Gatwick Airport was on the 14th of March. When we landed in St. Kitts, we were taken to one side and we were quarantined for 14 days. As a result of this, I decided to take the next British Airways flight back to Gatwick, which was the 18th of March. On my return into this country, meaning England, there were no such controls and people were just traveling as normal. St. Kitts have had a total of 15 confirmed cases since that date and no recorded deaths. As of yesterday, only 3 cases were still in isolation, and now we could say 2. The United Kingdom are still allowing non-UK arrivals without any sort of health controls. Is there any wonder that there has been more than 32,000 deaths here? When will they learn from a third world Caribbean island? And so, you know, they thought it was hashed that what was going on, and that they came on vacation and we said, no, you're going to have to go in quarantine for 14 days, and some of them opted, some stayed and some decided to go back home. And so we have, with respect to Mr. Backus asked about the hurricane season, a lot of other considerations are now going to have to go into shelters, whereas before we may have to just cut the total in half, because we have to consider the social distancing. We have to consider, again, that will involve the health department coming on and advising the NEMA representatives, etc. I guess we will be a permanent fixture in the new scheme of things, but it will have to be, again, a health-led initiative. I don't know if I'm at wrap up, but if we are, I promise my friend Sheila and Arnold Coleman in North Carolina that I will give them a good shout out. They're listening right now. They visited the island 2 years ago. We're planning to visit again this year, but because of what is going on, they're unable to do so. So I just want to say a special hello and thank you for upholding our country, our nation, and this world in prayer as we all strive to move our country forward in a healthy way. So God bless you all. I don't know if I'll get to come back.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Ms. Merclyn Hughes, for that hint. That was a very good hint. Time to wrap up. Yeah, yes. All right, you're going to wrap up right now, Ms. Hughes. I know you have a lot to do. All right, well, thank you very much, Ms. Merclyn Hughes, who is the Chief Immigration Officer, head of the COVID-19 Task Force. So we can have the final comments for today's program from the Prime Minister, St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Timothy Harris. But of course, I'm going to have to throw in a little political question here just to spice things up a bit. Mr. Prime Minister, the issue of elections, 3 months, you hold the bell or the key or the keypad, I don't know these days what it was, a smartphone, I don't know, to determine when that will be. Can you comment again on my persistent question from my listener? Can elections be held with the borders up? I suspect, though, that this question keeps coming around the corner because of the overseas voters issue. So I don't know if you're going to bite, if you're going to pull outside the off stump, Mr. Prime Minister. But that question for you is essentially: can the elections be held with the borders up? And are you satisfied with preparations for the election so that you could press that keypad, ring the bell, or just use the app on the smartphone?
Thank you very much, and I want to thank all those who have tuned in, and we hope this week's edition of Inside the News has been as informative and constructive to the populace and all the well-wishers of St. Kitts and Nevis. I want to thank the many callers for their interest in the country and their interest in the recovery of St. Kitts and Nevis. We certainly will. This has been a most challenging experience for everyone, everywhere. What has been good is that we started our response to this, and you heard that from our Chief Immigration Officer. We started our preparation early. We were able to do our public education more quickly and thoroughly. Went into the schools, went into workplaces, went into the banks, went into the public sector, public works, government headquarters, etc., just to name a few. Our health people were educated about this very early. That meant that we had a greater sense of awareness regarding the challenges. But until it really came, I think many persons in St. Kitts and Nevis did not take this thing for granted. I am happy, however, that where there were gaps, our citizens and residents moved to close them. As you drive around St. Kitts and Nevis, rural parts, city parts, suburban areas, we note that more and more people are adhering to the wearing of masks. While it's not 100%, and perhaps we will never get to that perfection, we are encouraged each time we see persons taking charge of their own health and doing something to stay healthy, because the biggest gift we can give ourselves is the gift of good health. Once we are ill, all our resources could be lost in attempting to get back at recovery. As it is for the individual, it is for the country. The COVID-19 has basically ramshackled the U.S. government, ramshackled the society, put a country that had been going year after year in outstanding performance in terms of the critical indices of good management, unemployment, where it was doing in trade, what it was doing in trade, etc., into a position now where we have had over 30 million persons gone on the employment list in the United States of America. And that is compounded by the large number of deaths that we've been having in the USA, which has now become the epicenter for the COVID-19. We pray for recoveries there, and we pray to a quick return to near normalcy for the U.S. The United States of America is our single most important partner politically and economically. It is our destination from which we get the largest number of our tourists. Any movement in the output of our tourism sector actually on Americans regaining the confidence in traveling. and then the United Kingdom, etc., etc. So we wish the United States of America well. Here in St. Kitts and Nevis, as we turn our attention to the opening up of the economy, the government, as a responsible leader, is ensuring that we follow appropriate advice. And that advice has largely been coming from the experts in the health ministry, the experts at CARFA, the regional health body at the forefront of this battle with COVID-19, doing much of our testing, etc. And we are doing so following the guidelines of the WHO. As we open up, we ensured that we have met the 6 criteria laid out by the World Health Organization for the relaxation. In other words, even as we move, we are attempting not to rush ahead and to put ourselves in danger. We have heard from the director of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tejas. We have heard from Dr. Etienne at PAHO that if we are not careful, there can be a second wave. And that is why we are urging the citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis not to become weary in doing the right things. Health come first. Health come first. Clearly, we are so far making successful efforts in flattening the curve, and we would want that to continue. As we achieve more of that, then it is that we could get closer to near normalcy. But near normalcy means we may never return to what was. We have heard, for example, the implications for health, for the build-out of a tourism plant, which must be more health conscious in the product orientation. Our hotels have to have a keener sense of awareness for the kind of services that they offer on compound and to which their guests are going to be open to and willing to participate in off of the hotel compounds. So a new orientation will have to take place. Our taxi men and women will have to pay attention to new issues of health. How many passengers? Just as we have had to define it, those issues will continue. So it is a lot of relearning and unlearning of some of the habits that we have developed in the past. And I want the country to focus on that. What we do know is that in St. Kitts and Nevis, this government, thanks be to God, has been able to provide successful leadership of the process so far. We need to continue on that path of good government, instituting strong measures when they are required, putting the health of the country beyond and above politics, because if we do not have healthy people, then those people are not going to be able to make it to the polls. What I do say, our constitutional framework does allow us adequate time in which to do what we need to do for an elections. This government's constitutional life goes for 90 days after the 14th of May. That will take us somewhere down to on about the 14th of August 2020. We do not know what will happen in that time frame, but the constitutional provisions does allow for what is necessary to take place to do so. We are focused first and foremost on the health. The various government departments have their work to do, and they will do what is required for them to do. The Electoral Office and the Electoral Commission has its work. They will do their work, and they have been doing their work to the best of my knowledge and belief, as is every other sector. Because again, you don't want just one sector doing work and paying attention. Every sector has to pay attention to what it is being required of them to do. The Customs Department still has to be managed well and effectively. The Immigration Department still has to be managed well and effectively. Health has to be managed well. Education has to be managed well. That is why the Ministry of Education has taken the lead. We have ordered nearly 2,000 devices, which we did not budget for, but which will be made available in the context of a new learning experience now required by the pandemic. We have now invested in our children's future. Similarly, the implications for jobs is one that we have considered, and we have a program which we shall build out in due time to ensure that the country will get back into a position of growth and development. And we see some signs of it. We see, for example, in our stimulus package, built out of the plan for agriculture, and over time we will see more as we get closer to normalcy. We see that our road resurfacing program, that has been continuing. And Monday we would have had, say for some technical issues, the groundbreaking ceremony for a start of a brand new health facility in St. Peter's. So the government continues to focus on delivery of good things for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We do it now, we will do it in the future. We have the full confidence of the majority of people in St. Kitts and Nevis and abroad. I think the intelligent citizen and resident want the government to do the right thing. Whether there's an election 90 days now or whenever it is, people want to ensure that the government act responsibly, and we have been doing so and will continue to do so. Again, let us work together, work hand in hand with the government to bring our beloved country as close as we can to normalcy as soon as we can. Everything else, I promise, will fall in place. I want again to thank all the people for their support. Thank in particular the church community for their prayers and their support for the government and for the country. To thank the business community and all those who have been part of the NEOC and the wider all of society approach. There is room and there is work for every one of us. And maybe instead of the political nitpicking, as some people are jostling for an alternative paradigm, we should be coming up with ideas that would help people to find new opportunities rather than be consumed with the challenges. Because indeed, in the new opportunities that will come thereafter, some of the traditional ones that we have worked so well may no longer have the same sense of relevance. So we have to get people more thinking. And I believe that in the human spirit of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, their best performance is yet to come, and I look forward to work with them to take our country to higher heights. Thank you.
And that's our program for today. The Prime
Whether you are a visitor, Kittitian or Nivision, tune in to ZIZ Television Channel 5 every weekday as we bring you the latest news in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Hi, I'm Carla Burridge. Join me weekdays at 7 p.m. for ZIZ's evening newscast. We'll let you know what's happening in your community.
Whether you're at home or abroad, ZIZ's social media platforms help you stay connected with what's going on in St. Kitts and Nevis. Keep up with daily events by liking our Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter at ZBC Online. Like our pictures on Instagram and subscribe to our videos on YouTube. Also, you can watch us live on the ZIZ mobile app and our website, zizonline.com. No matter where you are, ZIZ is just a click away. ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation, reaching you wherever you are.